Hello, everyone, and welcome to the African Reformed Theology Podcast. I am your host, Sifiso Mlech. And those of you who are watching the video, not listening to the podcast, can see that I am not in my normal setup for the podcast. And the reason for that is that this is not a full podcast episode. This is rather a bit of update and to give you an update of what is happening. And especially since I took a very long break from the podcast since summer or December last year, and it is time again to resume the work in the podcast. So this is not a full episode, rather it's a short episode just to give a bit of update this year and the plans for the podcast and everything surrounding it. So, as I've said, this is not a full episode, or it's a short update of the podcast. So there are basically two announcements that I hope to make, and one is bad, and the other one is good. So let's start with more of a negative one, so that we can end up on a positive note. So the first bad news or announcement is that I have decided to discontinue the video format of the podcast and only continue with the audio format. And that means that there won't be any video episodes uploaded on YouTube channel. Rather, all of the future episodes in 2023 will be accessible only via audio in all the platforms that the podcast is available in. So I have a couple of reasons for that. Just to mention one or two, for example, the first one is time. I'm doing this podcast on my own. Of course, it's a solo podcast, but also the work that I'm doing in it. I edit on my own, color grade and cut and all of that, and that takes a lot of time to do. So it's a little bit taxing on my side from my family and all the responsibilities that I have. For example, I'm not only am I working full time, 8 hours a day, but I'm also a father and a husband. I have responsibilities to take care of at home, and I'm a member, and I'm an active member of a church, of which I am supposed to do some things in the church to serve my brothers and sisters. And these are just few things that kind of cornered me into making this decision, but especially concerning my studies. So I am doing a Master of Divinity, and those who are friends with on Facebook can see that on my profile that I am a student. So I'm doing a Master of Divinity, and at this point I'm writing a dissertation, and it is a lot to read and it is a lot to write. So I'm got really will be finishing late summer this year. That means around September. I hope to finish my dissertation and my studies, and then the video format will be continued later, but I'm not too sure as to when will that time be. So those are a few reasons that cornered me into making that decision, and I pray and hope that my brothers and sisters in Christ and everyone who's following the podcast, especially on YouTube, will understand. But even though the podcast, a full podcast episode on YouTube will be discontinued, there will be a lot of content that will be coming in on YouTube channel. So stay on subscribing and still invite friends, families, and people to subscribe into the channel. But also a lot of other content, but mostly would be short form content, and this should be accessible in shorts, and in video will be maximum around 15-minute videos, but 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll be discussing few things and just tackling different topics and discussions. But so you can still stay on the YouTube channel of the podcast. There will be more videos and more content coming in for that. So, and there is a second announcement that I said I wanted to make, which is positive, which is good. And I hope you will be excited about it as I am. So the positive news about the podcast is that the podcast will no longer be released every second week, but will be released every week now. So what that means is that there will be more content coming in. There will be more episodes a month coming in, so you can listen to each episode, to different episodes each week. And that I pray and hope that this will give me a room to discuss certain things and aspects in a little bit more details, and maybe not, of course, much in depth, but just with a little bit more time and more clarity. Of course, with more episodes means more time to discuss different things. So from this week onward, every week an episode will be released. I will be discussing different things. So in the next episode, I will be beginning a series on salvation. So we'll be looking at salvation in African context and contrasting it with a biblical view of salvation. And I'm very much excited about that one because I think it is a very practical thing. Many people, especially in rural areas here in South Africa, do understand salvation, but they don't understand the distinctions or the differences and similarities. And when we look at these, contrasting the two, we can really see how supreme the salvation in Christian faith is, of course, as culminated in the works and the death of Christ. So I'm looking forward to the future episodes into 2023. I hope so far it has been treating you well. And keep praying for the podcast. And there will be, again, further announcements. We'll be uploading few documents that will be downloadable, and you can access those documents on my social media. You will find them there, and you get other documents that I hope will be helpful in 2023, such as a Bible reading plan in different languages such as Zulu, Xhosa, and a few other languages. I pray and hope that this year the podcast will be helpful to many of the brothers and sisters in Christ in South Africa. I've been really getting a lot of positive feedback and reviews of the podcast from my Twitter account to my Facebook. It has been a blessing to hear how this podcast has been helpful in many ways for the Christians or brothers and sisters in South Africa to understand, from a biblical perspective, different issues that we have talked about, we have covered, and there's still a lot more that we still continue to cover in the future. So that was all for today, and I am looking forward to the future episodes, and I am excited for 2023. I pray and hope that God will bless you in all that you do, in all that you plan, and that as we continue to but as we continue this journey in African Reform podcast, that it will be a blessing to you and to everyone that you'll be able to share it with. So until the next episode of the podcast, stay blessed.